Well, it's happened again. Netflix has been sued because of its hit documentary Tiger King, and this time it's for using movie clips without permission. Specifically, movie clips from the hit film Ace Ventura. So here's the complaints. It's in the Central District of California, the Western Division. It is Morgan Creek Productions for copyright infringement, so I'm guessing they are the owner of the copyrights for Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, and it is against the defendants, Good Films LLC and Netflix. So this is a civil action for copyright infringement under the Copyright Act, so pretty standard there. So here are the sort of the allegations. So in the two clips from Ace Ventura 2 used by the defendants without permission or license, Mr. Carey appears first with a monkey wrapped around his neck and shoulder, and then in an unrelated clip triumphantly riding an elephant. Together they comprise approximately 5 seconds of screen time. Here's one of the clips with the monkey, and here's the one with the elephant. If you actually go and watch the episode, it's more like 1.5 seconds to 2 seconds. It's not 5 seconds. So it's kind of strange that they would use the wrong time in their complaints. I think maybe the whole segment where the movie clips play is 5 seconds because there's other movie clips from The Jungle Book, I believe. So it's not like this is just Ace Ventura that's playing. And it's playing during a voiceover that's talking about Doc Antle, which is one of the tiger owners, and saying how his animals were used in various movies, including Ace Ventura. So that's when he mentions Ace Ventura, and then they play literally like a flash. It's like a picture almost. It's not even really a movie clip because it's so quick. And then they played some of the other movies he was in. The only difference is Ace Ventura is the only movie where there's 2 1 second maybe clips or half a second clips played. For all the other movies, it's just one. But there's different animals in the clips, so maybe they want to show that there was a monkey used from Doc Antle or from these tiger owners and an elephant used. For the other movies, maybe that wasn't applicable because there was only one animal used. The sequence with these clips appear in Tiger King, featuring movies where various wild animals such as tigers, panthers, monkeys, so there's one, and great apes appear. Didn't mention elephants. Leaving no room for doubt as to the source, a dubbed over voice identifies each movie as Ace Ventura at the precise time when the infringing clips appear on screen. Ace Ventura is the only film used in Tiger King where more than one clip appears. So they're trying to say, look, this isn't fair use. They're already thinking about the fair use counter argument. This isn't fair use because they used more than they needed to. They used 2 clips. They could have just used 1. Tiger King's going to argue, well, we used 2 clips because there's 2 different animals that were used and we wanted to highlight that, not because it added some kind of entertainment value or something like that. So this is kind of where it gets silly. On information and belief, defendants financially benefit from their use of the infringing clips because their appearance of the 2 comedic scenes from Ace Ventura 2 serve to enhance the commercial value of Tiger King by demonstrating the frequent use of wild animals in various cinematic productions, adding levity to the first episode, an important factor in driving traffic to the episode of Tiger King which follow, and indicating by inference that the makers of Ace Ventura 2 are promoting Tiger King favorably. So what's the issue? Whenever you're looking at copyright infringement and fair use, you're asking yourself, is this infringing on the potential market for Ace Ventura 2? Well, no one's going to watch Tiger King to get the experience of watching Ace Ventura 2. Of course, there are situations where sometimes people like react channels that you see on YouTube, if they play 90% of a film, well, people might not even go to watch the film on HBO or something. They could just watch it on YouTube through the React channel and get the same experience. And then it's infringing on that main market of content consumption. But for things like this, where it's extremely short, the market that's being infringed is the licensing market. So it's the market where these companies go through these negotiations to license their clips to other creators to make documentaries and things of that nature. So one thing I highlight here, which is pretty interesting, is a quote made by Mary LaFrance of the University of Nevada. The reason there's a market at all for clips this short is that people can't afford to litigate fair use. So these would be fair use in most cases, and the market for clips exists because people are scared of lawsuits, so they rather just pay up. You have a market because fair use isn't being applied, and if you apply fair use, you might not get fair use because there's a market. So here is just restating what Morgan Creek's argument is, saying the clips helped the docuseries by demonstrating use of wild animals, adding levity, and suggesting Ace Ventura's produced supports the docuseries. The funny thing is that first sentence, they helped the docuseries demonstrate use of wild animals in films, almost sounds like they're describing what a fair use would be. We didn't use this to add entertainment value, we used this to demonstrate use of wild animals in film. We use this to show a different side of Ace Ventura. Ace Ventura's purpose was to be a comedic film for entertainment. The purpose of these clips was to demonstrate that animals owned by these tiger owners are used in film, and you can see them in these kinds of major blockbuster films. So it's funny, it's like they're giving the fair use argument to the other side. And here's the part that I mentioned, it's actually about 1.5 seconds combined, shorter than claimed in the complaints. So if we can say there is a potential market harm, the question is whether the work was transformative, whether it created something new to a sufficient extent that it should be granted despite the fact that they didn't license. Because we want discourse, we want commentary, we want critique. We don't want people to be able to freeze, let's say, movie critics from criticizing a movie by the company saying it's copyright infringement if they show a clip of that movie. So Tiger King's probably going to argue fair use. And here are some of the best practices in fair use to kind of consider what they might argue. So whenever you're looking at fair use, you're asking yourself these key questions. Did the unlicensed use transform the material taken from the copyright work by using it for a different purpose than the original? Or did it just repeat the work for the same intent and value as the original? Let's say I recut Ace Ventura to make it a shorter film with just the best jokes. That seems close to the same purpose for which the original film existed, so that might not be fair use. But if I'm critiquing the use of animals in the film and showing how they're mistreated in the film or something like that, then that might be a transformative purpose because it's a whole different purpose than the original movie. And then the other question is, was the material taken appropriate in kind and amount? So if you use an hour of Ace Ventura to make your point, that seems too much. That seems like you're just putting it there for background noise so that people have an entertaining thing to look at while you're making your arguments. But if you use 1.5 seconds, well, that's barely any part of the whole movie. No one's getting any entertainment out of that. All it's doing is illustrating a point. And some of the best practices for different types of fair use are commenting on or critiquing the copyrighted material. So commentary may be explicit, as might be achieved, for example, by the addition of narration, or implicit, accomplished by means of recasting or recontextualizing the original. In the case of negative commentary, the fact that the critique itself may do economic damage to the market for the quoted work, as a negative review or a scathing piece of ridicule might, is irrelevant. So this is our movie reviews, our commentaries, and things of that nature. But these come with a limitation. That limitation is the use should not be so extensive or pervasive that it ceases to function as a critique and becomes instead a way of satisfying the audience's taste for the thing that is being quoted. In other words, the new use should not become a market substitute for the work. Another best practice for fair use is using the copyright material for illustration or example, which is, I think, sort of what this fair use is going to be for Tiger King. So sometimes video makers quote copyright material not in order to comment upon it, but because it aptly illustrates an argument or a point. So Tiger King's making the argument that wild animals were used in various major Hollywood movies and that these wild animals came from zoo owners such as Doc Antle and Joe Exotic. And how are they illustrating this point? By showing a series of movie clips that have these animals in the films. So this kind of use is fair when it is important to the larger purpose of the work, but also subordinate to it. It is fair when the video makers are not presenting the quoted material for its original purpose, but to harness it for a new one. This kind of use is thus creating new value, which is, I think, what is happening here. To the extent possible and appropriate, illustrative quotations should be drawn from a range of different sources, which is why that complaint mentions Ace Ventura is the only one that has 2 clips. So it's almost like it's saying, well, why is Ace Ventura the one with 2 clips? There's something different about that. It's almost making Ace Ventura seem special. People are going to think that we somehow endorsed Tiger King. And this also goes to the point of the clip should not be longer than necessary to achieve the intended effect. You could have achieved the intended effect by just having 1 clip, but you chose to have 2 clips. Again, I think the counter argument is, no, we wanted to show different animals, and Ace Ventura was one of the only movies that included 2 different animals. I think this is a pretty frivolous lawsuit, to be honest. I think this is an open and shut case of fair use. But the issue with this is that, well, fair use, it's going to be a question of fact, and it's going to have to go through discovery and things like that, unless Netflix argues that this is a slap lawsuit. So a SLAPP lawsuit is a strategic lawsuit against public participation, or an intimidation lawsuit. It's intended to censor, intimidate, and silence critics by burdening them with the cost of a legal defense until they abandon their criticism or opposition. In a typical SLAPP, the plaintiff does not normally expect to win the lawsuit. The plaintiff's goals are accomplished if the defendant succumbs to fear, intimidation, mounting legal costs, or simple exhaustions and abandons the criticism. So essentially, it's a frivolous litigation that's filed by someone in bad faith to basically scare someone off from conveying their message. Some jurisdictions have actually passed anti-SLAPP laws, so they'll basically allow you to throw out a lawsuit pretty early before getting to the fact-finding stage by saying, look, this is a SLAPP lawsuit. These laws often function by allowing a defendant to file a motion to strike and or dismiss on the grounds that the case involves protected speech on a matter of public concern, which is sort of what this documentary is. The plaintiff then bears a burden of showing a probability that they will prevail. So they'll actually consider the fair use maybe at an earlier stage than they would normally, because they're going to argue this is a slap lawsuit. It's only meant to intimidate. So what might happen with this case? Well, we either will have a response, basically arguing, denying the allegations or claiming fair use as a defense, or we might see a filing of a anti-slap motion to strike. So we'll see if that's the way this goes. And I'm always interested in these kinds of cases because fair use is something that's very subjective. It's up to a lot of dispute, and you never know which way it's going to go. So who knows? It could go either way.